Hey guys, Dwayne here. I wanted to talk a little bit today about going no contact when you can't. You know, most of the sites that you look at, they're going to talk about, when you're dealing with somebody who has, who's basically a narcissist, your best approach is just to go no contact. Don't communicate, don't respond, don't interact with them. I mean, basically don't give them an opportunity to edge their way back in. Now, the problem with that is, what do you do when you can't, right? So, and that's kind of a unique situation for people dealing in a divorce situation where you have kids. So if you have kids and your ex-spouse falls into the narcissistic category, what do? Right? I mean, you want to go no contact, but there's reason you can't. So anyways, what I'm going to talk about today is, going no contact, the good parts about it, reasons why you can't, like I already talked about, my definitions of a limited hybrid no contact, where you're basically kind of taking the concepts of going no contact and morphing it into a way to where you can protect yourself, utilizing email as your best methodology of communicating with these type of folks. Do not trust them. Then I'll talk about that. And the last thing I'm going to wrap it up with is, don't use your kids to transfer information. It's really tough, and I'll get with that in a minute. But so okay. So, going no contact. Why is it good? It's kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? It's kind of obvious, because it's it gives you distance. It limits the influence. It limits the influence that they have over you. I mean, think about it. If they've already been watching you a long time, they understand, your buttons. They understand what gets to you, but they know how to manipulate you. Okay, so anytime you let that in, it's like it's a dangerous situation, because you're allowing somebody in who has a lot of skills and experiences, getting, basically manipulating you to get you to pull back in. So that's, in my mind, that's the reason why going no contact is a great thing, because it does that. It gives you space and it gives you time to respond. Okay, so reasons why you can't is, like I said before, is if you have kids, right? Because you're gonna have school, you're gonna have medical stuff, school functions, and all that. I mean, and that type of stuff, and it just kind of forces it. Whenever you need to transfer information or share information, and it's really tough. And see, what's going to happen is if you're trying to communicate and they're not, it's going to get. I mean, it's going to get under your skin. It is going to drive you crazy. You're going to hear about. One of the things I remember, an example of this. I get a text saying, "Hey, sorry, we're running late." This is at work. This is like 9 o'clock in the morning. I'm at work, and I'm like, "Running late for what?" "Oh, for the awards ceremony." And I'm like, first I heard about it. I'm like, okay. Didn't know there was one. And where are you? And one of my kids, she had taken him to a doctor's appointment. So, and that type of stuff, it irritates, it highly frustrates you. So, because, you're like, well, wait a minute, you're supposed to share information. And if you're trying to share information and they're not, and then you fall into the trap of, you're supposed to, clickety click, clackety clack, you're supposed to share information. It's your, the court order, blah, 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 blah. Don't even do it. Don't even do it. All you're doing is giving them narcissistic supply. It's not going to accomplish anything. They're not going to miraculously go, oh my God, You're so right. I am so sorry that I forgot that there was this court order that said I'm supposed to share information. Oh, thank you for letting me know. I'm now going to do it. Think about it. Is that really going to happen? Nope, it ain't going to happen. So, same thing with doctor's notes and stuff like that. Like this particular example I was talking to you about. That's what it was. Taking him to the doctor, and it's like, oh, they want to do this, they want to do that, and it's like, oh wow, well, thanks for letting me know. Oh, so then see, and here's the funny thing, right? So I remember in that situation, I took the bait, hook, line, and sinker. I took it, and what do I get? Oh, were you even interested? Oh, I didn't even know you were interested. Oh, I because you never interested before. So just don't do it. Go around it. In this particular situation, what I ended up doing is I just made an appointment with the doctor, went down and met with them myself, found out what was going on, found out the different options, gave my input on what I thought would be a good way to go, and that's that's what I did, and that's what I would recommend you do. Don't take the bait. You know what I mean. And early on, when you're trying to figure this out, and maybe you're not sure, right? I mean, because there's a period of time where you're going to be confused. You're going to be like, well, no, this can't be. This isn't. It isn't that. It can't be that. It's that doesn't make any sense. Yeah, okay. Allow yourself a couple of times to go through that and get burned by it. But as soon as you start getting indications that this is what you're dealing with, just start taking these steps, and this will help you. And this is important because if you've searched the internet and YouTube for different techniques, hey, and maybe you're better at the search thing than I am, but not a lot of people have information about how to deal with this when you have kids involved. Most of it is like, go no contact, don't ever talk to them, don't answer the phone, don't meet up with them, don't text them, don't do all these things, don't answer their emails, don't all this other stuff. That's great if it's a one-off relationship, even if it's a marriage. But if you don't have anything else left to deal with, that's great. If you have kids, you are in for a mess because you're supposed to, right? And you'll even have people say, oh, well, you just need to share information. You need to be the better person. Well, if you're dealing with a narcissist, it isn't going to help. It isn't going to do anything. All it's going to do is open you up. You're basically going to, here, let me remove my, my shield and just, shoot, or stab or whatever. I mean, it doesn't work, And most people don't understand this whole personality disorder. So you got to be a little careful on the advice you get from other people on that, because all you're going to do is you're going to put yourself into a negative situation that really isn't going to help you out. So now so when I was going through all this and I'm listening to this no contact thing, and I even asked, I'd asked other folks, okay, well, how do you do this when you have kids? How do you do this when you can't go no contact? And nobody had any answers. They're like, good question. I don't know. So I had to basically try to come up with something myself. Now, this may not be the end all be all, but this has worked really well for me. And what I've done is I've kind of taken all this other information, mushed it together, and said, okay, well, how can I morph that into something that I can use that'll work for me? And it's morphed a little bit, right? I mean, because I tried the no contact thing. The problem with somebody like this, if you have kids, is then they'll turn around and they'll say, oh, well, you just don't share information. You don't, you're supposed to communicate. It's freaking annoying, right? Because, you'll get caught up in the thing. Well, they'll just turn around and they'll use it against you. Well, I'm trying to share information with you this one time in 2.5 years or 3 years or 4 years or whatever, and you just won't do it. So don't let yourself get into that trap. So limited, hybrid, no contact. That's what I'm calling this. Limited, hybrid, no contact. So first thing, you limit your conversations with this person as much as possible. And what I would highly recommend is no face-to-face conversations. No telephone conversations. Don't talk to them on the phone. Don't text them. Only do email. And the reason is face-to-face, you don't have time to think about it, and you don't have time to stop yourself from reacting. Same thing with telephone calls. Text, that you got a little bit of a better thing on that. I just wouldn't recommend it. Just do everything through email, because that way you have a single methodology of doing it, and it's done. And more than likely they're gonna complain about this. They'll be like, well, I don't, because what I had to deal with, well, I don't want to want to just do email or text. I just want to talk face to face. Yeah. Well, and the reason is because there's no record of it, right? I mean, you have a conversation face to face, unless someone's recording it, which is illegal in most states. You can. It's up for interpretation of whatever was said. Okay. Same thing with telephone calls, and then text and email. You have a track record of it. So now the caveat with that is when you do have to do face-to-face things, and what I would recommend on that is you mentally prepare yourself for it. You kind of run through your head what you expect to happen, and just prepare yourself so you don't react negatively, and you don't take the bait, and you don't you don't tip your hands, so to speak. Okay, so now that's tough, right? I mean, because you're going to have school functions. You might have a sports game. Maybe it's a soccer game with one of your kids, and you're both there. But just limit the conversation. Kind of put on your little, pretend like you're acting or whatever, and be as nice as you can possibly be. But you don't need to engage in conversation. Idle chit chat at the most, and whatever, not whatever, and try not to take the bait, but both ways, right? Because see, the other side of that, when you're in that face-to-face thing, is, if you do respond negatively, well, then it kind of gives them a thing like, oh, well, see, it's just so sad that they do X, they do Y, like you do, they won't respond, whatever. Just try to just bite your lip. You're doing it for your kids, and just don't allow yourself to get sucked in. Okay, so email only. Like I said with that, I mean, the main thing with that is it limits what you're saying, and it controls how you do it, right? And what I mean by that is, if they send you an email and you get a reaction, you're just like, you have an adrenaline spike, and you have a post-traumatic stress disorder type flashback, I guess, for lack of a better description. And to be honest, that's actually probably a pretty good description. Don't immediately respond, right? Take advantage of the built-in delays with email. You don't have to respond right then. And to be perfectly honest, more than likely, they probably don't really respond to you unless they're trying to suck you in, and then they will, because they're going to want the back and forth. Okay, so first thing, only send information. Like, what I mean by that is, don't ask questions. How about this? How about that? How about, what do you think if we meet at this time? Don't do anything that generates a response or generates a reason for the other person to ask something. If you're going to meet someplace, just say, I will be there at excuse me, at 1 o'clock. Just like I said, don't send open-ended questions. Don't take the bait on anything they send to you. And what I mean by that is, they will probably send you open-ended questions, trying to get a dialogue to start. This is what I would recommend on that. If you get something and there's a question, one, don't answer immediately. I mean, if you want to type something up right then and there, you go for it. Do not hit the send button. Don't do it. Do not do it right then. First question you ask yourself is, do you really need to answer? If the answer is yes, don't send it immediately. Give yourself some time, at least a few hours, if not waiting until the next day. If you answer yes, ask yourself again. Now, I've done this. I'll read an email and it'll be like, okay, well, there's a question there and I think I need to answer it. And then I take a step back and I look at it and it's like, do I really need to answer it? Is the answer basically already there? If there is any reason that I don't need to answer a question, I don't do it. There's no reason for it. It doesn't accomplish anything. You do not want to get into a dialogue with one of these people because there's nothing in it for you. They are not going to change. They have not gotten better. They have not decided that that they've realized they've done something wrong. They are incapable of all of those things. It won't happen. So don't subject yourself to it. And more than likely, if you've been dealing with this, you've already done it. You have already, at one point, had an interaction where you said, oh, well, this is different. Okay, so we must have gone through enough of this, so now things are going to change. It's not going to change. Even if you've allowed yourself, and I've done it a couple of times myself, where I'm like, oh, okay, well, this must be the time where, the stupidity of this is going to stop. No, it's a tactic. And what has always happened is once I once I engage in a conversation, or I try to where it even remotely seems like the communication has gone back to what it was before, I get attacked. It's like, it's inevitable. If they want something and you like, oh, okay, we'll compromise and I'll let you do this. And whenever you're like, hey, I have this, I have a thing that's going on now, and I want to move the times around, like is stated that we can do in the court order, but that's a different story. It isn't going to happen, So, and you got to be, this is where it gets kind of dicey because, you do want to do stuff for your kids, and you want to be able to, make sure that they don't really get what's going on, and putting them in the middle of it's not going to do any good. And that's what the deal is, right? That's what's going to happen is you're going to get put in the middle. Your kids are going to be used against you. And I'm going to get into the kid thing here in a minute. So just to kind of go back to that, just unless you absolutely have to respond, don't do it. Don't do it to yourself, guys. Just don't. Stop. Sometimes you're going to want to. You're going to want to, prove your point or vindicate yourself, or, you want to believe that things are going to change. It's not going to happen. These people can't do it. Now, if it ever changes and I, have an epiphany and whatever, I'll be the first one to come back and make a video and say, hey, I was wrong. But it's not going to happen. I think even if the person I'm dealing with did it and came back and said, oh, I've done all these things to be better, I'd be like, hey, that's great. That's great for you. That's awesome. Stay over there, right? Just because, it's a tough one. So don't do it to yourself. Don't allow yourself to get wrapped back into that. Okay, so do not engage. Don't take the bait. Do not respond immediately. Like I said, don't do it. Give yourself some time. Reread whatever you are gonna send to them to make sure that you aren't setting yourself up. Okay. Next thing I want to talk about, and I kind of went over this a little bit, is don't trust them. Don't trust them. Do not let your guard down. Keep your guard up. And it's a little bit stressful because, when you're in that situation and you're constantly kind of like, just like, okay, expecting something to happen. If you're dealing with a narcissist and you're dealing with somebody who is a covert narcissist or maybe has borderline, tendencies, they are experts at playing this game. I mean, they know how to read you. They know what to say to you. They know how to try to suck you back in. And, and with the whole thing with kids, you can't really get away from them because of that. So, don't, I mean, there were times where, and sometimes I didn't see it. Sometimes I had to have someone else point it out to me, like whenever, food would miraculously come home with the kids. Oh, hey, here, have this. Yeah, no. I mean, I didn't even, just don't even respond. Don't, it's all a tactic. It's all to try to reel you back in. And the thing about it is, it's like they will decide when to share information when it's convenient for them. So think about that for a moment. So, and you can't take it as a one-off. Now the bad part is that they can use that to say, oh well, look, see, I shared this information and he won't share anything with me because I asked this one question and he didn't send anything. Or which technically I don't think that ever happened. I mean, I always send information. Like I've said before, I scan and send everything, and just it's matter of fact. Here's a report card. Here's the student information. Here's the soccer information. Here, whatever, that type of thing, and not make it open-ended. Yeah. So just they're really good at this. They instinctively know how to do it. They instinctively know how to play you. And make sure you keep those boundaries for yourself. Okay. Next thing, do not use your kids to send information. Now, sometimes that's going to be really tough because if you're dealing in this situation, they're not sending information. So, you can either, it's tough. I mean, the best case solution is that you get them to you get the other parent to send you the information. But if they're not going to do it, find that balance where you're sending stuff. But just honestly, guys, I would recommend that you don't sit there and try to ask questions, because this is what'll happen. You'll be like, hey, what's going on with the homework? Hey, I asked you the other day, and doing all this through email. Hey, I asked you the other day, here's a copy of the other email. Nothing. At some point, you'll get an email saying, "Oh, I'm sorry, I'm having problems. My computer had problems, and I didn't get your email on any of my devices, like my computer, my iPhone, I'm like, oh, okay, all right." And then they'll probably say, "Hey, don't be sending all the, you don't need to be sending all these other emails of, that you've already sent." And it's like, see, it's a tactic, right? I mean, they're trying to suck you in. They're trying to get in to where they can interact with you. And then they'll use the kids. They'll use the kids because they know it'll piss you off because, they're not supposed to do it. And I mean, unless you have a ton of money to go back to court and fight all these things, it's just, you're kind of at a loss, and you have to figure out a way to deal with it. So they're going to use the kids. They'll be something like they'll want some concession or extra time if it's on your time, and they won't tell you about it. They're not going to ask you. They're not going to send you an email, say, "Hey, there's this thing that our kid wants, our child wants to do, and it's really important to them, and it would be really great if we could work something out." No. You'll hear about it from your other kid. You'll be talking, and they'll be like, "Oh, hey, there's this function thing that I want to do," and it's like, "Oh, wow, okay." Now on those, what I do is I tell the kids, I'm like, "You're not a go-between. You're not going to get in the middle of this. You don't ask a question. You tell your mom if she needs something, just to send me an email. It's not appropriate for you to be in the middle of it, and I'm not going to play this game where you're being used as a go-between, and it's not going to happen." So, it's tough, and it kind of, I don't know. And the hard part about that is if you're talking to a professional, more than likely they'll say, oh, well, you just need to, you need to cope, you need to do whatever. And it's like, well, what I mean by whatever, you need to ask the questions. And it's like, okay, well, how do you do that whenever, so what happens whenever you send, when information is being sent between the kids, Most of the time on that, you'll get like a, oh crap, look, because it's like, oh, because I think fundamentally it's really hard for people, even when right? I mean, as you're going through this and you're learning this stuff yourself, you will probably find times where something will happen again. It will happen again and again and again. But it seems so bizarre that it's hard to believe that it's actually happening, right? I mean, I think instinctively people are like, oh, well, people don't behave, people, they don't want to believe that people will or can behave like that. So it's tough, right? So it's a fine balance on it. So, try not to use your kids, don't be sending notes back and forth, or through the kids. Some things you may have to, but just be cautious of it. And I think as long as you're doing it and not doing that, but I mean, if you're skating that line, but you understand and you're like making a conscious decision, like, okay, well, maybe you've sent your email and you're not getting anything, and then you ask the kid something or whatever. But I would, here's the thing: if there's some information, like let's say your kids are going back to their mom, or to the other parent, I would highly recommend, if there is some information that they are going to tell their other parent, before you take them back over to the other house, or they get picked up, or however your scenario works, send an email, draft up an email and say, this is the situation that's going on. Don't ask a question, don't do that, but just send it, right? So that they have it, so that way, you cannot be goat roped into this scenario where, you're not transferring information and you're not sharing and stuff like that. And the next thing is just to set boundaries. Part of what I was just talking about with the kids is setting boundaries. And then the next part about it is, setting those boundaries with your ex, to not allow yourself to get roped into responding or getting in or engaging in a conversation that's going to go nowhere. It doesn't serve anything. It doesn't help you. It actually just is going to make things worse. And I think that's the whole point of it. That's the goal. The goal is to set you off balance, to get you emotionally deregulated, to get you in a non-calm state, and just don't fall for it. Okay, I know this is a tough one when you're trying to figure out how to deal with this, and when everyone is telling you, just go no contact, go no contact, that go no contact, and Gray Rock kind of works on this, and we can talk about that at a different time. But mainly, I just wanted to give you the first little hit on how to do this hybrid no contact thing. Okay, so I'm going to wrap this up. This is running a little bit longer than I really had wanted. I've been meaning to do a video like this, and I may end up having to do a couple more on it just to flesh out all the little nuances of it. But it's tough, and it's really tough when you have kids. They're in the middle of it. It's just tough. So that's my thing. Limited, hybrid, no contact. I think it's a new term. We need to start using that because in these situations, no contact is not an option, unfortunately. But there's a way to do it to where you're basically kind of just skirting that edge, and and if you're intentionally doing it, and you know it, and you're following this little process, then the likelihood that you're going to get sucked back in is a lot less, because you know what you're dealing with, you know what your expectations are. You more than likely have had past experience with this to where you've already been burned, to where you've kind of like, oh, okay, like I said before, where you think things are starting to change, and as soon as they think that it's gone back, then everything reverts back. So that's the key. Just keep it limited. Don't ask questions. Share the information you need to share. Well, I didn't really say this. I said this on another video, but find alternate ways to get the information. Go to the school yourself. Go to the school. Talk to the teachers. Get on the list so that you get the notifications too. They might fight you on that, but if you go down there and talk about it, you'll get something set up. Talk to the doctors yourself. I mean, like even on that, when I take the kids to a doctor's appointment, I make notes. I make notes on everything, and when it's done, I will type them up, and I'll put them in my little electronic file, and I'll send them to her. Not with any questions, not like, what do you think? It's like, this was the appointment. This is the information they took. I mean, sometimes if I get the vitals, I'll just put that down. This is what they said. This is what we need to do. And that's it. No, what do you think? No, what about this? What's your opinion? No, nope, don't do it. Send them the information and drop it. We'll leave it that way. Okay, so on that, I hope this helped. This one's a tough one. I think if you look at it, it kind of makes sense. I think everything I listed out is really doable. It's pretty simple if you just kind of keep yourself focused, and it can protect yourself and help you out a lot. This whole thing on figuring out what I was dealing with was a big key, and then making this modification to where it has been very beneficial to me, and I think it will work for you as well. So okay, on that, I'm going to wrap it up. Guys, be kind to yourself. Don't beat yourself up on stuff that you may have already done. It's a learning process. Hey, if you're watching this video all the way to the end, then you're trying to do something to help make your life better, which is going to make your kids' life better and help you heal on all this. So yeah, just be kind to yourself. Keep up the good work. Stay focused on this stuff, and you're going to get through it. And on that, I'm going to wrap it up, and I will talk to you on the next one. So thanks, guys. Talk to you later. Bye.